What is the one thing I wish I had known before I published my first book? Well, in today's video, I'm gonna tell you. Let's go. Quick story. I've been doing yoga for 18 years. This week, as my teacher in my yoga class invited everyone to move into headstand, I did not do it. I politely waited out the 30 or so seconds, which is what I have done at every yoga class for the last 18 years. I always have a good reason, and my reason is that I can't do it. Like, I know I can't do it. And the time to try has never seemed like those 30 seconds I'm giving during class to try to get on my head. You know, there are so many rational reasons for this, I don't even know which to mention first. It's like, I know I'll fall, you know, I don't actually know the right form for it, I don't want to injure myself. It's not that I don't think I could ever do it, like I actually do think I could do a headstand if I had the right training and tried, but it just never seems like the right moment to try. And as a result, 18 years passed and I'm still not doing it. Truly, over all these years, I've never really paid much attention to that fact. But this week, as I stood there just waiting for the inversion moment to pass during yoga so we could get back into Warrior 2, I did some math. 18 years, many of those years I went to yoga daily, which means somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 hours of yoga total. Thousands of times that I have not wanted to fall, you know, again, very rational, very reasonable. So I've waited while other people did the pose that I didn't know yet. And as a result, here I was 18 years later in the exact same place I was when I started almost 2 decades ago. That really caught my attention. Back home, I did a little more calculating. I just wanted to see. So those 30-second chunks over 18 years added up to conservatively around 40 hours. 40 hours of waiting while other people were like, you know, tipping over or doing headstands. Do you know how many hours it takes the average child to learn to ride a bike? I Googled. Less than an hour. It takes 45 minutes. If I had actually spent 40 hours trying to get on my head, even in small bursts, even falling over, is it possible that I might be able to do a headstand now? Yeah, it's actually pretty likely. But here I am 18 years into my yoga practice and I don't know how to stand on my head because for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of days, I thought, not today. Doesn't make sense to do it today. I'll do it later. I'll do it tomorrow. Not today. The same is true of writing. Looking back on what I wish I had known before I became a published novelist, one of the things I didn't realize is that people have a lot of rational advice and not all of it is good. I have gotten a lot of writing advice from well-meaning, really smart people, and it sounds so good when they say it. But just because something sounds rational doesn't mean that it's to your benefit over the long term. And I'll say that again. Just because something sounds rational in a given moment doesn't mean it's to your advantage over the long term. In the world of writing, I think there are conventions in particular, like peer feedback in creative writing classes, that are not contributing to the success of writers. But because writers go on to be successful, they appear to be helpful. Like, when in reality, those writers were gonna be successful anyway and may have been successful sooner if they hadn't had to deal with all of these writing conventions and advice that permeate the creative writing world and sound rational, even though they're not actually that helpful. What are the conventions I'm talking about? Okay, things like editing as you go. Thinking about writing rules and devices as you're writing a first draft. Getting feedback as you're writing a first draft. Thinking anyone has any feedback for you that's useful when you're starting a draft, when you just have a seedling of an idea. These are all very well-established writing conventions that I truly believe are not helpful to writers. Okay, I have more to say to you, but before I do, a quick invitation. I have a free private group for writers working on books, where once a month I host a live event where I plan out the first third of a new novel from scratch. It's super fun. It's like improv meets novel writing. And you can join this event, 30,000 words in 30 minutes. Watch Mary plan the first third of a novel from scratch at the link below this video. Okay, back to the video. All right, I have another quick story for you. In April of 2017, my literary agent sent out my first novel to publishers. And a month later, in May 2017, I got my first offer from a publisher. That offer was for more than I had ever made in a year at that point in my life. And a lot of good stuff happened after that. The book went to auction because it turned out, a few publishers wanted it, which was a dream come true. I ended up at my dream publisher, HarperCollins, with my ideal editor, Emily Griffin, who's the executive editor there. It was all wonderful. But of all the good stuff that happened after that first offer, I really don't know that anything compared to the feeling I had on the phone with my agent that day when she told me we had an offer. It was like my body exhaled for the first time in 6 years, because that's about how long I had been working on that novel, for 6 years. I had written at least 13 drafts of it. And since that first draft, I had written the first draft after Googling how many words are in a novel, and the internet told me 70,000, so I just wrote till I hit that number. Since then, I had taken a dozen or more writing classes, including a couple that had completely derailed me, because the feedback I would get would be essentially to write a book other than the one that I wanted to write. And so I would take that advice and try to write a different book instead. Doing this, I had reached burnout a couple of times because I would get just so worn out of trying to write to satisfy other people that I would frantically decide I should get an MFA, and then I would spend a few months writing short stories to try to get into MFA programs, even though I didn't even really want to go to an MFA program. What I really wanted was to write the book I had in me. I just wanted it to be good, and I didn't know how to get there. So finally, that day on the phone with my agent, I felt like my whole body exhaled, because what I had always wanted had come. It was gonna happen. My book was going to be on a shelf in Barnes & Noble, which is what I had always wanted. Okay, but here's my point. I wanna talk about how else I could tell that story I just told you. I could tell that story in an instructive way. I could say, listen, if you wanna publish a novel, here's what you should do. Google how many words are in a novel and write until you hit whatever number the internet tells you. Take 3 to 4 writing classes a year where you and your peers give each other feedback, even though you leave those classes feeling discouraged and kind of icky and rarely, if ever, inspired. Write to please others as much as possible, and do this for about 5 years without trusting your gut. Definitely rewrite your draft based on what one person says. Do this a few times, right? If I said all of this and said, well, this is how you write a publishable novel, because this is what I did and I wrote a publishable novel, that would be false. Just because someone is successful doesn't mean that every step they took contributed toward their success. Yes, we fail and we learn, but we often will look at someone who has achieved success and think, well, they achieved X because they did Y, when really they may have gotten X in spite of the fact that they did Y. I didn't write a publishable novel because I listened to my peers' feedback and took it to heart over and over without question. I wrote a publishable novel in spite of that. So this goes back to my story I told a few minutes ago about the rational advice, because I want you to trust yourself over others. You have to trust your own gut over feedback that sounds smart, that sounds rational, no matter how smart or rational it sounds. That's how you find your voice, and that's how you write a story with heart. This, by the way, is what I try to help writers do in my program, the Book Incubator, which I'm going to invite you to apply for now, because if you're still watching, I assume you're writing a book or you want to write one. And if so, I have something else for you. A couple of years ago, I created the 4 notebooks method. This is my process for handwriting a novel across 4 notebooks. The 4 notebooks method is my strategy for mapping out your story structure in a way that doesn't lock you into an outline or suck all the freedom and fun out of writing. If you would like to learn this method and download a free digital template for writing your novel across 4 notebooks, just go to the link below this video. To get the template, you just have to apply for my program, the Book Incubator. It's 2 questions to apply. It'll take under 5 minutes, and you'll get the template right away. Whether you join or not, there's no pressure to enroll. So just click the link and tell me a little bit about you and your book or your book idea. I can't wait to hear from you.